In a world that constantly tells us to seek happiness in more things, bigger houses, fancier cars, social media validation, it can be hard to pause and ask, what is true happiness? What if, for just a moment, you could turn inward to discover a kind of joy so profound it connects you to something greater than the daily grind of life? This is the promise of Al-Ghazali's Alchemy of Happiness, a work that speaks to our souls, encouraging us to embark on a journey toward divine connection. Al-Ghazali's words, written over 1,000 years ago, resonate today because they remind us that the key to real happiness doesn't lie in external pursuits. It is within, already waiting to be discovered. But to unlock it, you must first understand yourself. To dive into Al-Ghazali's wisdom, let's start with one simple but profound truth. Know yourself, and you will know your Creator. The path to true happiness, according to Al-Ghazali, begins with the self. How can you connect to the divine if you don't first understand the very nature of the soul that seeks Him? Al-Ghazali explains that the soul is not merely the physical body or the fleeting thoughts that come and go. It is something deeper, something more profound. The soul, in its purest form, is a reflection of God's light, a spark of divinity housed within the body. Understanding this truth is the first step in understanding God. For how can you know God, the Almighty, the Creator of all, if you do not know the soul that He created within you? As Al-Ghazali guides us further into his Alchemy of Happiness, we encounter a profound realization. The soul is not just the seat of our desires or our fleeting emotions. It is the essence of who we are, a unique vessel created by the divine with incredible potential. And just like any valuable treasure, the soul is meant to be cultivated, refined, and purified. But how can we begin this inner journey of transformation? Al-Ghazali explains that the soul is divided into various faculties. Some of these are animalistic, driven by basic desires like hunger, sleep, and the need for comfort. These faculties, while necessary for survival, are not what define us as human beings. They are the instincts we share with all creatures. Then, there are the faculties that elevate the soul, such as reason and will. These higher faculties are where our true potential lies. This is where we can recognize the presence of the divine and begin to align ourselves with the path that leads to God. Al-Ghazali tells us that these faculties often fall into imbalance. If we are ruled entirely by our animalistic urges, we are disconnected from the higher faculties of reason and divine guidance. We live in a world where instant gratification is so easily accessible that we often neglect the deeper, lasting satisfaction that comes from spiritual growth. So how do we regain this balance and bring our faculties into alignment? Al-Ghazali speaks of the need for self-reflection and purification. By confronting our inner desires, our pride, anger, and greed, we can begin to free the soul from its attachments to the material world. This process, Al-Ghazali calls tazkiyah, or the purification of the soul. It is through this purification that the soul finds its true path, one that leads to the divine, to eternal happiness. Al-Ghazali teaches that true happiness does not come from possessions, status, or fleeting pleasures. It is found through an intimate connection with the divine, and this connection is cultivated through worship and devotion. Yet worship is not just a ritual performed on certain days. It is the entire way of life. Every action that we take, every thought that we entertain, every moment of reflection or prayer can be a form of worship if we align it with the intention of seeking closeness to God. This idea might seem abstract at first. How can we make every action a form of worship? Al-Ghazali breaks it down beautifully by reminding us that all of creation is interconnected. Every moment, every breath, every step we take is part of the cosmic order established by God. And when we act in alignment with that divine order, we are engaging in worship. This means that our work, our relationships, even our leisure can become acts of worship, if done with a heart directed toward God. But there is a catch here too. Al-Ghazali cautions that just going through the motions, performing outward acts of devotion without an inward connection to God, is not enough. True worship is a matter of the heart. It is about cultivating a mindset of remembrance, constantly remembering God, even in the smallest moments of life. When you're working, remembering God. When you're resting, remembering God. When you're eating, remembering God. This practice of remembrance, Al-Ghazali explains, keeps the heart clean, open, and receptive to the divine. As we continue through Al-Ghazali's teachings, we find one of the most beautiful aspects of the journey toward happiness: the love of God. When the soul is purified and aligned with divine purpose, it begins to experience a deep and overwhelming love for the Creator. This love is not like the love we experience for other people or objects. It is a love that transcends all worldly attachments, a love that ignites the soul with a sacred fire. The love of God is a transformative force. Al-Ghazali describes it as something that reorients the entire being, reshaping our priorities, our desires, and even our very understanding of what it means to be happy. When we love God, everything else falls into place. Our actions become acts of devotion. Our suffering becomes an opportunity for spiritual growth. And our joy becomes a reflection of God's infinite beauty. Al-Ghazali goes so far as to say that the love of God is the ultimate goal of life, the very reason we were created. He writes, "The heart is like a garden, and love is the seed. If you nurture the seed, it grows into a tree that bears the fruit of eternal happiness." In this way, love is both the fuel for the journey and the destination itself. It is the gateway to true fulfillment, and it is found not in what we gain, but in what we give: our love, our devotion, and our surrender to the divine. Finally, Al-Ghazali speaks of divine knowledge, an intimate understanding of God's will and wisdom. Knowledge, he teaches, is not just intellectual. It is a spiritual revelation that transforms the heart and mind. It is through knowledge that the soul becomes illuminated, and it is through this illumination that we are able to see the world as it truly is, a reflection of God's infinite beauty and power. Divine knowledge does not come from books or teachings alone. While intellectual knowledge is important, Al-Ghazali emphasizes that the highest form of knowledge comes through spiritual experience, through direct communion with the divine. This kind of knowledge is not just understood in the mind, it is felt in the heart, experienced in the soul. It is a light that guides us through the darkness of the world, a light that shows us the way back to our Creator. But Al-Ghazali also reminds us that this knowledge requires effort. It is not something that is handed to us on a silver platter. It must be sought after, cultivated through patience, humility, and devotion. As with any true treasure, divine knowledge comes only to those who earnestly seek it with a pure heart and a focused mind. At this point, Al-Ghazali's message begins to resonate more deeply. The path to happiness is not a smooth, easy road. It is one that requires deep inner struggle, a battle against the distractions of the self and the temptations of the world. The soul, while divine in nature, is often veiled by the impurities of pride, ego, and attachment. Al-Ghazali teaches that true happiness is born from confronting these veils, these inner obstacles, and transforming them through conscious effort and spiritual discipline. What Al-Ghazali presents here is a profound truth about human nature. While the heart may be pure in its essence, it is often clouded by our desires, our fears, and our attachments to the material world. These attachments, whether to wealth, fame, or even to our own status, create a fog that blocks the light of divine knowledge from shining clearly. It is not enough to simply pray, fast, or perform good deeds on the outside. The heart must be cleaned and cleared from within. This purification is what Al-Ghazali calls the tazkiyah, the process of cleansing the soul. But how does one go about this inner purification? Al-Ghazali gives us the answer. It comes through consistent self-reflection, sincere repentance, and mindfulness of God. He speaks of a daily practice of dhikr, remembrance of God, of gratitude for what we have, and of humility before the Creator. These practices help to uproot the ego and restore the soul to its original state of purity. This inward struggle is not easy. It requires constant vigilance. The soul is a battlefield where the forces of the animal nature clash with the forces of the divine. However, Al-Ghazali assures us that this struggle is the very essence of spiritual growth. He emphasizes that the fight to purify the heart is the noblest and most rewarding struggle a person can embark upon. In Al-Ghazali's thought, the body plays an important role in the pursuit of happiness. The body is not merely a physical vessel. It is the vehicle through which the soul interacts with the world. It is through the body that we experience the pleasures and pains of this world, but it is also through the body that we can engage in acts of worship and devotion. Al-Ghazali compares the body to a kingdom and the heart to the ruler of this kingdom. The body, with all its senses and faculties, must be governed and controlled by the heart. If the body is allowed to indulge in excess or distractions, it becomes a hindrance to the soul's spiritual journey. The body, in essence, must be disciplined in the same way that a kingdom must be ruled by a wise and just king. Al-Ghazali speaks of how the senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, are to be used in moderation and in service of the soul's higher purpose. These faculties should not be allowed to dominate, but instead must be directed toward acts of worship and service to God. The body must serve the soul, just as a well-disciplined kingdom serves its ruler. This idea of balance is key to Al-Ghazali's teaching. The body must not be neglected, but neither should it be indulged. To do so would be to fall into the trap of materialism and hedonism, seeking satisfaction in fleeting pleasures rather than in the lasting joy of spiritual connection. Having understood the need for purification and balance, Al-Ghazali points to the cornerstone of true happiness: faith and devotion to God. Faith, according to Al-Ghazali, is not merely a belief in God's existence. It is a deep, abiding trust in the divine, a conviction that every aspect of life is shaped by God's will, and a surrender to the knowledge that all things happen for a higher purpose. But faith, in Al-Ghazali's view, is not passive. It is active, living, and dynamic. It is shown through worship, through service to others, and through a life that aligns itself with God's will. The essence of true devotion is not found in ritual alone, but in the heart's constant turning towards God in everything it does. This devotion is not confined to prayer and fasting. It extends into every part of our lives. Al-Ghazali emphasizes that even our everyday actions, such as eating, working, and interacting with others, can be acts of devotion if done with the intention of pleasing God. The key to this devotion is sincerity. Al-Ghazali warns against superficial acts of worship, those that are done merely for show or out of habit. True devotion is rooted in the heart. It is when the heart is fully engaged, fully in tune with God, that worship becomes meaningful and transformative. When a person worships with a sincere heart, they experience the sweetness of connection with the divine, a sweetness that no worldly pleasure can compare with. Al-Ghazali, a scholar and philosopher himself, places great importance on knowledge. But not just any knowledge. It is not enough to accumulate facts or to pursue intellectual learning for its own sake. The knowledge that leads to true happiness is the knowledge that brings us closer to God. Al-Ghazali speaks of the highest form of knowledge, the knowledge of the divine. This divine knowledge is not the result of reading books or memorizing texts alone. It is an experiential knowledge, one that comes from the heart, from spiritual awakening, and from the intimate connection with God. It is through this divine knowledge that we begin to see the world with clear eyes that recognize God's hand in every aspect of creation. Al-Ghazali teaches that knowledge is the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance and the key to unlocking the soul's true potential. Now, having walked through the journey Al-Ghazali offers, we arrive at a profound question. What does it mean to live these teachings in our modern world? How do we, in the hustle and noise of everyday life, apply the wisdom of the alchemy of happiness? Al-Ghazali's message, though timeless, is practical. In today's world, we face many distractions, pressures, and temptations, chasing after things that promise happiness but leave us empty. Yet Al-Ghazali reminds us that true happiness is not an acquisition, but an inner transformation. It is in the quiet moments of stillness, in the discipline of the heart, and in the clarity of mind that we can experience peace. Living Al-Ghazali's wisdom means consciously choosing to prioritize the inner life. It means cultivating habits of self-reflection, practicing gratitude, and striving for purity in thought and action. It also means being aware of our fleeting attachments to material things and recognizing that nothing in this world can offer lasting fulfillment except the connection to the divine. You don't need to retreat from the world to live this wisdom. In fact, Al-Ghazali encourages us to engage fully with life, but with a heart that is awake and centered. Whether you're working, interacting with loved ones, or enjoying your favorite pastimes, you can invite the divine into every moment, finding meaning in the simplest of actions. In this journey, you are the alchemist, and the gold you seek is within. Your soul, when purified, becomes the mirror reflecting God's beauty. Each act of kindness, each prayer, each moment of gratitude is a stroke of that divine artistry. Al-Ghazali does not just offer philosophy, he offers a path to action. This path is not always easy. There will be days of doubt, days when the distractions of life seem too loud to ignore. But Al-Ghazali reminds us that happiness is a continuous journey of seeking and striving. Every step taken toward purifying the heart is a victory, and each moment spent in remembrance of God brings us closer to the peace we long for. So take that first step today. Begin with awareness. Notice the moments when you are caught up in the noise of the world, and gently bring your attention back to your heart. Engage in practices of remembrance, gratitude, and reflection. Find stillness in the chaos. Ask yourself, what brings me peace? What elevates my soul? Align your actions with your highest purpose and allow the wisdom of Al-Ghazali to illuminate your path. As you walk this path, imagine the world as a vast ocean with the currents pulling you in different directions. In the midst of the waves, there is a still center, a place where the waters are calm and the sky is clear. This center is your soul, untouched by the storms of the world. Al-Ghazali's teachings are like a gentle wind that guides you back to that center. The more you purify your heart, the clearer the waters become, and the closer you get to the divine shore of eternal peace. Take a moment now. Breathe deeply. Feel the presence of God in every cell of your body, in the air that fills your lungs, in the pulse of life that beats within you. Know that you are never alone on this journey. The divine is with you, guiding you, calling you back to the source of all love and light. In the end, happiness is not something to be chased. It is something to be uncovered, cultivated, and cherished. It is the fruit of a heart that seeks God with sincerity and devotion. May you find that happiness, not in the world around you, but in the divine union within.